But whatever the West does, the key sticking point now is China. China is really aggressive. It's hit America with its own trade restrictions. And now Donald Trump has retaliated by jacking up their tariffs to over 100%. And you've got J.D. Vance, meanwhile, calling the Chinese peasants, whereas and the Chinese are taking great exception to that. Where is this going? Because that is now merging with some nationalist agenda.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I kind of look at everything that's happening in one big group and then China as its own little subset issue, which is probably not that little of a subset issue. But you get my point that I think there's all the other countries and then China specifically. As for me, I'm actually glad we're standing up to China the way that we are. It's been way too long. We have gotten abused by China since they entered the WTO in the early 2000s. They are not the responsible stakeholder. They are not embracing capitalism. They steal from us our intellectual property. They do these tech transfers. They've flooded the market on a lot of cheap goods. They have stolen from us, spied on us, sent us COVID. I'm excited we're doing this. Now, that all being said, I think that we need a very clear strategy. What are we trying to achieve from China? What is it that we want? Because I think one of the critiques that I would have of the current policy is there's three kind of buckets that this administration is putting itself in. Donald Trump's talked for 40 years about reciprocal trade. If they're at 10, we should be at 10. If they go to 0, we go to 0. I'm 100% on board on that. That's a market access argument, right? Then you've got other people in the government saying that we're going to erase our deficit or our debt with all the money that we bring in. Well, that undermines the reciprocal trade argument, because if you do that, then that means you got to keep the tariffs on. And then third is that there's a discussion about trying to bring jobs back, to onshore them into America. Again, I'm on board on that, but it seems in conflict with some of the other policies that they're pursuing right now. So I think first and foremost, they have to define what success looks like in China. Are we trying to bring back more manufacturing? Are we trying to lower the trade deficit with them? But the Trump administration, I think, is going to find a lot of support when it comes to taking on China. What I think they need to do is have a very, very clear and concise messaging and communication strategy with respect to China and what we're seeking to do there.
Well, that brings me to the fourth agenda, which you didn't mention. I agree with everything you said about the other three, and that is weakening China, quite specifically weakening the world's greatest tyranny and America's greatest threat. I mentioned the soldiers are now being sent, well, or volunteering, we don't know, to fight with Russia. I'm just wondering, is there an agenda here to weaken China? Is that actually one of the things here, and how would China respond to that?
Well, look, their economy isn't what it used to be. I mean, their target growth right now is 5%, which is much lower than it's been. But there's a difference. Obviously, the way China is controlled by Xi Jinping is they can tolerate a lot. They can treat their people in a lot different way than we can in America. So there's a lot more built into what they can do to their own people than we can do here in America. I do think it's important, though, that we stand up to them. And it's a balancing act. Remember, they own a lot of our debt, and we rely on them for a lot of cheap goods that come from China. So until we're ready to embrace manufacturing back here in America, we have to recognize that there is a necessary relationship.
Look, these are momentous times, and history seems to be in absolute fast forward at the moment. Sean Spicer, thank you so much for your time.
Always. Thanks, Andrew.